Hey guys, and welcome back.
Welcome back. This is a special episode today. Why
Yeah,
is that, Brendan?
well, this is episode 6, part 1.
Ooh, we separated them into two parts, y'all. Y'all get two episodes today.
Yes, so part 1 is going to be all about schizophrenia and bipolar 1, coming from my perspective.
Brendan's the whole person for this show today.
Yeah, and then part 2 is going to be Leilani about postpartum depression and PTSD.
Yep. So sit back, get your tea, get comfortable, and get ready for a long ass field trip.
Oh yeah, this schizophrenia one definitely is about to be a whole trip.
And just for the record, I've already pre-cried, so if I sound a little snotty, just ignore me.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into a little bit about what schizophrenia actually is, because if you Google anything, of course, like Google is the worst thing because all of a sudden you're dying.
Swear every time you have like cancer or something.
Yeah, it's always something to the extreme. But schizophrenia, actually, as there have been like very insane cases, is something that a lot of people have that doesn't really have a major impact or as scary as what Google makes it sound. It's not always a horror story. So there are two types of schizophrenics. Both can be minor or chronic. Personally, I am a chronic auditorial schizophrenic, meaning I don't hallucinate visually, I only hallucinate mentally. As for a visual schizophrenic, is hallucinating to the point to where they're seeing people, they're seeing things, and I'm blessed to not be that kind of schizophrenic.
And they can be hearing things too.
Yes,
Correct?
yeah. More often than not, if you're a visual schizophrenic, you also have auditorial hallucinations as well. Um, so being an auditorial schizophrenic, I hear a lot of things. Currently, I have about 12 to 13 voices that are depictable but unrecognized, if that makes sense. These are voices that I don't have a face for. Um, Sometimes, I have one or two going on. Sometimes I have them all going on. Not all of them are negative things, as though most of them are. A lot of them are belittling, a lot of them are oppressive, a lot of them are, like, fuck you, dude, you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing. But there are also a couple who are like, hey, you're doing the right thing, and a couple of them actually help me like make good decisions. Like, I started journaling yesterday, very hard. I've always journaled here and there, but I've been very adamant about it starting yesterday.
Throughout
And
your day, yeah.
yeah, and that's something that like one of them has been helping me with. Like one of my auditorial hallucinations is actually helping me like, hey, you need to write this down in your journal. And it's kind of fucking crazy. It's almost like having like a second me talk to me, if that makes sense.
That sounds helpful.
Yeah. Um but when those negative ones come in, man, it's crazy. So essentially how the negative ones impact me the most, and it's a pattern that I've noticed, is if I do anything throughout my day that forms any kind of guilt, they grab that. And it's like today we were in the car coming home from Nashville, and it's late, and the baby Evelyn's trying to go to sleep, and the other baby Miguel screamed, or it wasn't even screaming, he was just making noise in the background while Evelyn was screaming. Yeah, and I was just like so overstimulated that I said, Miguel, stop. And Leilani was like, that's not fair. He wasn't even screaming. He's just making noise. He's just one. And so, like, me feeling guilty about that because she was absolutely correct, I was out of pocket for that. It triggered it. I started feeling guilty, and then all of a sudden, these voices are saying, you shouldn't have fucking done that. You're a fucking piece of shit, dad. Just things along those lines. And so it's kind of the hidden blessing with the negative ones is I learn a lot quicker what I'm doing wrong to avoid those episodes,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a crazy thing to have. I will say, ever since starting my medication, they have been slightly muted. I wouldn't say they're completely muted, but they aren't as loud. Sometimes, and if you're a schizophrenic listening to this, I'm sure you can relate. Sometimes it's like you have headphones in your ears and they're all in your head, or they're playing in your head. And a lot of the times you can depict what room in your house they're actually talking in. Like I can be sitting in my living room and be like, yo, there's like 6 motherfuckers bullying one motherfucker in the kitchen, and or they're screaming at me from the kitchen. It's very, very intense, and it seems very, very real sometimes, even though I know it's not. Like sometimes my wife even has to remind me it's not real, which leads to the next part of this one. How do you manage to live with a schizophrenic? And after you explain how you manage to live with a schizophrenic, the next question after that would be, how do you help me come out of my episodes, and how do you tolerate it?
Oh gosh, kind of on the spot right now. How do I live with a schizophrenic? To me, it's not that I live with you. I love you. I accept who you are. It's just this is just our life now. This is reality, you know. I will admit that I had a hard time at first, and since then, I think I've grown a lot in this, situation. But a lot of it is just patience and trying to be understanding. I am a lot more aware of our surroundings, so that if we're in a place where there's a lot of talking and things like that, I try to avoid things because I'm trying to be more understanding of you. And I will admit, like, it has been a very big adjustment, like you not driving.
Yeah, from the very beginning, you were definitely scared. I know that much for sure.
Yeah, I was terrified because, like you said, you hear all these horror stories, but that there, you're still a person. You're the man that I married. You're the man that I will love until the day that I die. And I think I just needed to get past that ultimate fear. But like I said, it's been a very hard adjustment. I will admit, like, you don't drive near as much. That puts a lot on me. I will admit, like, making sure you take your meds and things like that. I feel like there's a lot on my plate. But, I don't know about everybody else, but when I said through sickness and in health, I meant that.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't 100% the perfect wife in the beginning, I do stand by those words, and that we will get through this no matter what route it ends up at, and what we have to do. I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, you mentioned the whole not driving part, which is going to lead me into this next subject about schizophrenics. A lot of us develop muscle spasms and tremors. Some schizophrenics don't. I definitely do, and mine are, since I have it's hard to explain. I'm a chronic auditorial schizophrenic, but my muscle spasms and my tremors are also considered chronic by my psychiatrist. So basically, there are moments, particularly after any kind of episode, where I can't control my arms, my legs, my neck, especially my neck lately. My neck it's always hurting because I have tremors with my neck. Currently not tremoring, thank God. I took my tremor medication.
Yeah, because I made you.
Yeah, but my voice gets shaky, and it's gotten so bad that yesterday we were driving home from dropping off the 3S girls. That's what I call Sailor, Celeste, and Sable.
Shout out to our girls.
Yeah. We were driving home, and I told Leilani, I was like, hey, I'll drive us home. And I got maybe 10 miles away from the exit.
Yeah.
Leilani was asleep, and I started tremoring and spasming so bad that I had to completely tense my leg just to be able to drive.
Yeah, and you had trouble hitting the brake. It was bad.
Yeah, I had trouble hitting the brake. I had trouble maintaining a steady gas release in the car, and it was just I can't fucking drive anymore.
Yeah, that was I think when we came to that realization was when everything really came into forefront for me.
Yeah.
And it was holy fuck, it was one thing where it was you had to take meds, and then, you would tell me you were having these auditorial hallucinations and things like that. But when it started to directly affect our everyday life, that's when it was holy fuck.
Yeah.
This shit's real. This shit's really changing some shit, you know what I mean? This is not a little thing, this is that real thing. And so I will admit I was taken back, but it only took me about 2 minutes, I want to say, in my own head, that I was all right, well, you know what, let's go talk to your psychiatrist, let's see what we need to do.
Yeah.
To get your license revoked if we need to do that, or whatever they say. But it's been a big adjustment.
The tremors have such an effect on my day-to-day life. As I mentioned, I journal. That I like to write. I like handwriting in my journals. I have a whole slew of journals. I have like 8 journals, literally.
Well, you gave one to Sailor.
Yeah. And it's gotten to the point to where like I can't even write with my hand and feel comfortable to be able to go back to my journal at any point in the day to write when something pops up in my head, because if something pops up in my head that I want to write and I just so happen to be having tremors, I can't write.
Yeah.
I have struggles reading because my hands are shaking as I'm reading the book. So yeah, there's a lot more to schizophrenia than a lot of people recognize. And tips for any schizophrenic or mental health in general. But for me, my schizophrenia is journaling is something that's very important. I've actually learned to use it as a coping tool. Docking in every single schizophrenic episode I have, typing it up. And typing for me has become very easy to do because if I'm shaking or not, I'm not writing it by hand, and it's easier to press a letter than it is to write. So I've recently moved all of my journals to online. Oh, Delilah. As the last episode, our dog is going to try to participate.
Yes.
So yeah, no. Coping skills. Yeah. That's why I'm on. Another coping skill is as long as it's not one that's particularly just in my head, and it's one that feels like they're in the other room. Headphones, music can really, really, really dilute the schizophrenic episodes if you're hearing something from another room. Now, if it's in your head, it's gonna outplay the music every single fucking time. So it's not a cure-all, just like the medication and the therapy isn't a cure-all. Like, I have to live with this with the rest of my life. No matter what meds they put me on, there will still be an episode here and there.
Yeah.
Which goes back to, again, how do you manage to help me get out of my episodes? And what tips would you give the spouse of a schizophrenic to help them, help their schizophrenic spouse or friend even?
I think one of the biggest things, and I don't know how much of an impact it makes, I'll never actually know. But sometimes, like, I'll grab your hand.
That's the biggest one.
I'll make you touch my face, yeah. Right? And I'll remind you, like, hey, this is your reality right here. It's not real. When he's tremoring really bad, I try to say, like, you need to stay relaxed. Because sometimes when you tense up, that makes it hurt more. And I'll be like, you can't stop it, so let's just breathe through it. And trying to get him to just ease his mind, because it's one of those things where it's almost like giving birth to a baby. No matter what you do, you're going to have to go through it, right? It's the same thing with that tremor or that hallucination. No matter what, until it's over, you're going to have to go through it. So let's try to make you as comfortable as possible during the process. And I think that's like really all that I so far have even learned in trying to help you. Sometimes I give you your space. Like, sometimes you'll go and call someone else instead of me, and that doesn't bother me at all. Like, I also know that sometimes you might feel like you need a different type of support, and so if I'm not that support right then and there, you call whoever. But we know so many of y'all don't have a support system.
Yeah.
So that's why, I think the best thing that you could do is maybe make a box, like I was telling we could do, and put something from the 5 senses in it. Yeah. Smell, touch, see, taste, in your little box. So when you start to hallucinate or go through these episodes, you have your own support in that box to ground you back to reality.
Right. Just for the tidbit here, I don't call other people particularly because I need another type of support. My wife is actually the biggest help when it comes to getting out of my episodes. Followed up by my biological mother. She helps me out a lot. But it's not that necessarily, more of like, it's a lot to take in and it's a lot to handle and manage. So I don't feel as if it's fair for her to have to manage it with me every single time. And I try to give her a little bit of a break because I know you have your own mental stuff going on. I come to you the majority of the time, but I do take moments of talking to someone else specifically so you don't feel like you're drowned in my world and you have time for your world.
I guess, like, I just sense it in the sense of, like, sometimes I need my mom.
Yeah.
And it's okay to sometimes need your mom or need a certain specific person is right. What I was meaning, because, like, there's times where I've called my mom before I've called you, and it's right. Very seldom, but, there's sometimes I just need my mommy, right. Mom, answer the phone. I don't care if you're at work, I got some shit to tell you, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Next segment.
This next segment, bipolar 1 disorder.
Please explain the difference between the two, though, if you can.
Yeah, so I'm diagnosed bipolar type 1, which is the more severe type of bipolar. Yeah, double whammy on my end with the mental shit, guys.
You're cute though. It's okay.
Yeah, look, I'm funny sometimes.
You are very funny.
But so bipolar 1, the type of bipolar I have is more long term. The highs and the manic lows are way more drawn out. So a bipolar 1 individual will have reckless spending habits. They will feel like they're on top of the world for months, sometimes weeks, sometimes days, sometimes for a year. Yeah, definitely me. And it can be very easily misdiagnosed as ADHD or ADD.
Yeah, which
because
is what you thought you had
because
for a
you
while.
are you're constantly starting something up and then you get bored and you go to the next thing. The way you can differentiate the two is ADHD people have a hard time managing just throughout the day, as to where I particularly don't have problems managing it, as to where I over obsess. And when I over obsess about something, I start pushing that something on somebody else. And anybody and everybody who denies anything that I say is like immediately the bad guy. And then so like you get this point of like you're skyrocketing up and you're doing all this work, and then you get that bored feeling, and then you just drop fast. You know, it could be in the matter of a day, and you're in that low for a very long period of time. And bipolar 2 disorder is more or less you have spurts throughout the day, or you can be triggered very easily where you go from happy to mad. The typical, oh, I'm bipolar is bipolar 2. Like, you know, like 1 minute you're happy, next minute you're mad, and you can't really like, you know, control your emotions, as to where schizophrenic type 1 like me,
Not schizophrenic, bipolar.
not schizophrenic, yeah, bipolar 1 like me is way, like I said, more long term. So managing emotions is a little bit easier for us. It's just harder to catch and get a grip on because of how unpredictable it is on when that crash is going to happen. And one thing that I can't stress enough, which is actually might be a topic we discuss in the future, the importance of both of these diagnoses is that you need not only medication, but you need therapy. You can't rely on one or the other. You have to take both. If you don't take both, you're not going to learn the coping skills. You're not going to have an open mind. And you're ultimately just going to become a bitter person at some point.
Or worse, take your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like the manic lows for bipolar 1,
they're extreme.
They're very extreme. If you actually research it, like I had earlier today, bipolar 1, his like, I want to say it was, I know it was in the top 5. I think it was number 3 on the most severe depressive list. Like out of all depression diagnoses, bipolar 1 is like number 3. And so like the lows are low. Like you can't even get out of bed for days. You don't get out of bed for days. You don't fucking eat. Like the last bipolar spill that I had was working at that smoke shop. And I got really fucking invested into this job. I was making really fucking good money, like upwards of $1,500 a week. And so I got the making the money and the materialistic things really put me up at a high. And shit fell through with the job, and I hit this major low immediately. And I just gave up on everything. The gym, I gave up on making music, I gave up on painting shoes, like all these things I enjoyed doing, I just did not have the desire to do at all. And it also made it very hard to love my wife or love my kids, because you go to this sense eventually after the depression stage of this stage of numb. And it's like you're just fucking existing and the world is passing you by, so you don't give a fuck, because whether you're here or not, it's gonna fucking pass you by regardless. And you disassociate on the highs, you disassociate so bad that the world literally does pass you by. Leilani actually caught me today disassociating while journaling and researching, you know, mental health topics. And she's like, Brendan, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And she said, but I think you're disassociating. And immediately the bipolar 1 in me came out and was like, no, I'm just trying to do this, this, and this. And then I got up for a second and like I took a deep breath and I was like, no, you're fucking right. Like I'm disassociating. Let me take a step back. Let me sit down with you and the kids. Let's enjoy some time together, because it was very easily the start of a bipolar 1 episode. And had she not pointed that out, Lord knows I'd probably be disassociated right now and going 100 miles an hour and not managing my time properly with my family and my personal like individual life. And so like I'm really thankful that you actually noticed that. And that's something else that's important. If your spouse tells you that they have a concern for you, don't get angry.
Try not to.
Take a step back and try to see their viewpoint on it. Try to see like what they see. You know, try to look at yourself and what you're doing and really observe and before you come to like, you know, a final decision of are they right or wrong. Like you have to see their side out. And that's something that's really hard to do for bipolar ones because like I said, we snap back into this defense mode quick. But just take a step back, take a deep breath, and think for a second. That's bipolar 1 for you for me. How do you manage to notice signs of my bipolar? Granted, this is a new diagnosis. They originally diagnosed me PTSD from childhood trauma, which was completely fucking wrong.
Well, I think you still could have some bit of PTSD in there, but I don't think that all these other things are because of that.
Yeah.
God, I've been with you for a minute now.
Or, I mean, you could even give some more examples of, like, episodes that I've had, like Bipolar 1 spills.
I don't know if you want me to go there.
Go at it.
I might start fighting you by the end of this.
It's all about transparency. Ain't nobody gonna get mad.
No, well, no, I've been with you for a while, and I thought from the beginning that you were bipolar, and so when they changed that, I was very unsure of your new diagnosis. It just didn't make sense to me. And I hate to say this on the podcast, but like there were some moments, man, where you were fucking horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been horrible, so please don't think that I'm not saying that. I need a tissue already. You know, you're not wrong when you would get depressed. I mean, hell, like I can't tell you how many nights me and the kids missed out on you, you know, or how many days we missed out on having you and them having their father. But through that we stuck it out because I had seen the good sides of you, and I knew that there was still that part of you in there, and that's really why I stayed as long as I did, and just tried to learn how to cope, you know. But I would say that through that, with me being with you as long as I have and seeing the worst and then seeing the best, I think I've learned how to be assertive but respectful at the same time, because unfortunately with you, and I can't say this is pertaining to your bipolar, it could, I don't know, you know, because I don't know a lot about this stuff, but with you, as long as I remain respectful but I stand my ground on something, you handle that better than if I'm just like standing my ground, being extra stern, blah, blah, blah. But if I remain respectful and you are still my husband, you are still a person, and also validating my feelings, needs, and wants, you handle that better.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, I'm sorry.
Along lines with like the being horrible sometimes thing, in my opinion, this is like the most dangerous part of bipolar 1. Okay? It's not laying hands on people. It's not, you know, anything like that. But the most dangerous part of bipolar 1, which I'm very guilty of myself, is once you hit that low and that sadness can harm you so much that it turns into anger, you will literally push away everybody who's in your corner, because everybody who's in your corner is trying to help you, but you don't want to see it, or you actually, it's not that you don't want to, you just can't.
It's that self-sabotage that we talked about. Yes,
self-sabotage. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've lost friends, I've pushed friends away, some of them came back, you know, not all of them, more or less none, you know, less of them came back. And it's like, the reason I say this is the most dangerous is once you go through that angry spill of the bipolar 1, or probably even bipolar 2, I can't speak on that because I'm not diagnosed. Once you push all these people away for the last time, you're alone. And then so the next time you go up to a high and then you crash, you have nobody to talk to or fall back on. And the reason I consider this most dangerous is I've already said that the depression is awful. So imagine having that depression and not having anybody. You know, that sense of depression and then loneliness, those are a dangerous fucking concoction of feelings.
Yeah.
And it could very easily lead to you ending your life. I mean, I know now on my suicide attempt a few years ago that that's exactly what happened. I pushed everybody who actually cared about me away to the fucking curb in anger and neediness and codependency, that I felt alone. And when I felt alone and I was down in this super down low, I attempted suicide. Granted, I got lucky and got my second chance at life. But
people aren't that lucky.
Yeah, most people aren't that lucky.
Which is why we're doing this.
Yeah, so yeah, bipolar 1 is definitely a dangerous diagnosis, just like schizophrenia. So you really, 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 I can't stress this enough, guys. You really need to go to a therapist, and you really need to keep up with your medication.
Yes.
I've noticed that even in the past week, because I'm about a week in on my meds, that I'm seeing change in myself, and Leilani has made it known that she's seeing change in me. But it's hard to deal with, guys. And if you have a friend who's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, schizophrenic, minimal or chronic, be there for them, because there's going to be moments where they are down. And if you're with somebody, if one of your friends is like that, it sucks to say this, but you're walking on ice and you don't even know when the ice is going to crack. So you kind of have to watch how you approach these people. It's very important to watch how you approach them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wrap on part 1.
Yeah, I want to make it known, though, that if you are any of these things that we've discussed in this episode and you have no support system, I'm not trying to drag you to get us some likes. We don't really give a fuck about that, if we're being honest.
Nah,
but
I'm here for a good time.
Yeah, we started the Facebook group, Not So Sad Podcast, and mental support group.
Mental support group, yep.
And you can find a pen pal on there that you can message. You can message us more directly on there, and build your own support system if you don't have one at home, because you're not alone.
And if you're shy, you can even post anonymously. We have it set to where anything you post can be posted anonymously. That way nobody knows your face to the diagnosis that you have.
Exactly. You know, we want to be there for all of you. And, you know, the best way that we can do that, unfortunately, is through social media, because we don't know how far everybody is and things of that nature. So if you need a support group, please don't take your life. Please join us and talk to us and seek help. We want to watch people heal.
Yeah, you can find the Facebook support group through our Linktree that is based on our Anchor account. So if you're watching the podcast, you'll see the website. So just click on the link. You'll see the Facebook support group. You'll see the podcast. You'll see the suicide hotline number and website. So use those utilities, guys. That's why we're here. We're here to provide you guys the tools and some advice to manage your mental health better.
And if you're liking the podcast, give us a subscribe.
Yeah, follow the podcast. Yeah, guys.
We're unprofessional as fuck, but let me tell you, we're making a podcast, so we're doing something.
Yeah, speaking of the podcast, I will say this: we are balls to the motherfucking walls on this
yes,
fucking
we
podcast.
are.
So we decided to do video, as you guys have noticed on the past 2 episodes. I didn't have a mic, so we now have 2 mics. And we were looking for an adapter for an iPhone, because why spend hundreds of dollars on a camera when you have a nice phone? And
long story short,
we bought the mic, we bought the tripod, and we were looking for the adapter, and Best Buy didn't have it. Nowhere in fucking town had it, so we drove a whole hour to Nashville, Tennessee, to the Apple store to pick this up to make this podcast happen today, because we were determined to fucking do it.
Yes.
We were risking it for the biscuit because we had all the kids. It was getting late. The Apple store was going to close in like an hour's time, and we fucking did it though.
We are determined to bring more joy and awareness to this world, and we will go to the ends of the earth to do that.
And the Apple store employees were dope as fuck. They all got the podcast. So if you're actually listening to this right now and you saw me in that Apple store, shout out to you, because y'all hooked me up with a free parking pass, so I didn't have to pay for my parking.
Shout out.
Definitely appreciate it. So that's a wrap on episode 1. We will see you guys in the next episode, or part 1. See you in the next part. Much love, guys.
Much love.